Hello, everyone. We are starting with a fresh new session of project management, and we were discussing the idea generation and screening concept in our previous session. This is Dr. Swati Mishra from International School of Business Management at Suresh Gamyar University, Jaipur, and I'll be further continuing the session in which we will be discussing the idea generation and screening part in project management. So, as far as idea generation and screening was concerned, I have already introduced you to the concept. So, we had discussed some considerations initially, like, I had given you a few exercises in which I told you that you always see what you believe, right? And that is why, whenever we are generating a project concept or an idea for a project, what happens is that we are always, our mentality, our perception, our thought process is always overshadowed by our personal beliefs. And of course, the perception of the project ideas are also dependent upon the individual experiences that uh, you know a person would carry. For example, like, if you have a belief that, say, any you know government project always takes more time as compared to any privately owned firm's project. So that is a perception that we can, right? So that, sometimes it happens that, we are very hesitant and we are not showing belief in one particular organization which is taking up any project. So, whereas if we talk about, a project's team, you know, the completion of the project in time and the coordination that the team has within each other would also depend a lot upon the team's beliefs and individual experiences, right? And what kind of goals and aims an individual is having towards uh, the project. If by any chance the goals of an individual are clashing by the project's goal, then it is far more likely that there would be clashes between those objectives of the individuals and the team of the project, ultimately leading to, incoordination in the team, and in time, uh, the completion of the project does not take place in time. So we have already discussed it in the previous session, so there is no need to, go through it once again. And that is why now I will be moving forward with the discussion, wherein I would, actually like to talk to you about what are these individual experiences that would, shape down the perception that anybody would carry, or the presumption or the assumptions that anybody would carry, which would actually be the stepping stones towards the project's formulations. So when we talk about the individual experiences, learning through whatever learning any person gets through its educational career and the education and career both, you know there is always a technology push that you know team or an individual gets. Like, it happens many times that a person graduates as an engineer, and by the time he joins a project, a a new technology has come in which he is not very well versed with. Because he might be having an idea, but he's not well versed with it, because technology keeps changing and advancing in every 6 months. So whatever technology push is there, you know uh, that actually is a key source of the individual experiences which would shape the kind of idea generation that takes place in a project. Of course, the learnings that a person gets, they could be, because a person studies at various places, gains experiences at various places. So that also shapes individual experiences, right? And then the level of frustration that one carries, whether it is self, whether it is on others, that would also shape up how one person is actually reacting to any circumstance, any idea that has been generated, any kind of project that has been designed. So there are always multiple phases of idea generation. The two main phases of idea generation, uh, would be the it would be the idea generation and the screening, of course. And when we talk about the generation of ideas, there is something that you should always ponder about, that what comes first, whether the idea or the business. So you know there is a very funny vicious circle that exists in this case. Like, when I believe, or maybe any one of you believes, that he wants to be an entrepreneur, you know so what happens is that he feels a need to start his business. Now, since he wants to start his business, he has to set up an idea. From that idea, he has to develop a business plan, right? That is what happens. And from the business plans, again, new ideas arrive. Like, when you are trying to set up a business, you might come across other different types of businesses, and you might get some new ideas. So there is this vicious circle of these relationships that exists. So, you know whenever generation of idea takes place, whether it is an idea which came first, or whether it was the need to start up a new business because of which you were trying to generate the ideas, whatever the case was, right? The search of the ideas is going to remain as it is, no matter what. Now, what is this search of the ideas? When you are trying to hunt for a solution to a problem in the society, that is idea generation. And it totally depends upon trial and error method, in which you are just coming up with an idea, trying to implement it. If any error occurs in it, then you are trying to rectify it, and again trying. So trial error method is there, right? So there might be multiple types of ideas. Like, in the previous session, I told you that there could be multiple sources of ideas. And when there are multiple sources of ideas, it is very obvious that there are going to be multiple ideas as well. When there are multiple ideas, it is not possible that all the ideas are business worthy, you know which means that all the ideas are worth implementing. So that is why the feasibility test of the ideas is highly required. And there are two aspects of this feasibility test. The first is to judge the technicalities of the project, like what type of technology is going to be used in it, and whether it is going to be successful to implement that particular idea or not, or maybe whether it is feasible to introduce that idea technology wise or not, whether a project team is technologically that sound or not, whether you get skilled labor to work on these types of ideas or not. So that is what is technicality. The next is the business or the market or the finances itself. So feasibility study is also done based on the markets, whether the project will be accepted by the market or not, and of course the financial considerations hidden behind any project. What kind of budgets will be required, how much of costs will be arose, and on the basis of that the screening of ideas takes place. So as I just said, that there are two phases of idea generation, which is idea generation and screening of the ideas. And obviously once the generation of idea takes place and the infeasible options are weeded out, we are left with only the idea which is actually workable. So, after the screening of idea, the best idea that is available with the team is actually selected, worked upon, and implemented. And the end result of it is, of course, a product or a service concept which is developed. So, there could be multiple types of strategies that can be implemented while implementing any project idea. They could be radical type of strategies in which some radical changes are brought in. Maybe like, I needed to make my production more efficient, so I installed 5 new automatized, fully computerized machineries, and now the labor that is required is very less. Besides, the machines are making the product with a higher accuracy. Then of course improvements in the method of production, improvements in the ways of control of finances, improvements in human resource development department of the organization are also required. So whatever hustle is there, that should be reduced, and more organized manner. I mean, the strategies should be developed in a more organized manner. So let's just discuss about a framework to think about ideas for entrepreneurship. So you can see a grid matrix on your PC on your screens right now. This grid matrix has around 9 boxes, 3 columns, and 3 rows, which makes it 9 boxes, right? And each on each axis, a few constraints are marked. Like on y-axis, the constraints are new markets, identifiable markets, and existing markets. And on x-axis, there are existing products, modified products, and according to this, the new products also. So here an example is given to make you understand this grid in a better manner. Just go through the grid and try to understand it. Like when there are existing products and there are existing markets, they have given some examples, okay? So they say that, women's shampoo is the best example of this. That there are existing products and there are existing markets for the product. Similarly, when there are existing products and there are identifiable markets, like that in case of clothes for professional women, or maybe there are existing products and new markets are there, then mobile pet grooming device is required. Similarly, when there are modified products and existing markets, then alternate greeting cards and all these things flourish along. In case of overnight package delivery, you can call it as modified product with identifiable market. In case of personal computers, you can call it as modified products with new markets. So this is how they have just given examples of each, right? So there is one very interesting example which you can see over here, right? Which clearly mentions that, whenever there are new products and new markets, right? Obviously, new products, new markets would require maximum strategy formulation in launching and successful completion of any project. And Laserdisc is one example of such new project in a new market, right? So I also wanted to discuss about the innovations that are done in project management. There could be multiple types of innovations, like just some kind of simulation in which you actually try to reduce the uh, rejection rate in your organization, and maybe you try to install fully automatized machine to reduce the labor and labor cost. So there could be multiple such types of innovations which are done, and to process these innovations, intellectual property protection becomes a very big challenge for these types of process innovations. So what are the tools behind this kind of idea generation, that also you need to understand, right? For example, the first one that is listed here is a very basic type of example, that is the naive listening. When you're just listening to what others are saying, you might generate a new idea by yourself, or maybe just take the idea from others, modify it in your own terms, and present it. Then, of course, another toolkit to generate an idea is to look again at things with a different perspective or different perception. Read journals, magazines for new projects a lot. Whenever you see any problem and you try to design a solution to it, always ask a question to yourself, which is why. Ask why to yourself. Like, even if you are doing anything very small, you should ask it why is it needed, why is it necessary, who is going to benefit from it, whether it is needed for your personal development or just to upload an assignment, right? So these kind of things, assignment given to you by your bosses or maybe. So that is why you need to ask why to things. Then, of course, you have to also develop the notes of the project along with the project, and you also have to submit them in that big organization's database, so that your findings, your valuable contributions can be utilized for further um, use in different types of projects. So that is why either any kind of project development idea or maybe notes of those ideas should be saved by the organization's main department. An idea folder can also be generated, and it can be shared with others also through Google through Google plus benefits. And everybody can come up with an idea and post it in your sheet. And once that idea folder is created, you can actually jot down some good project ideas which can be brought into life and completed successfully also. So with this, let us move ahead. Just give me a moment and I will change the PPT. So now we will be discussing another very important aspect of. We've discussed what is idea generation, what is idea screening, and now we need to discuss as to what is project feasibility analysis. I just spoke to you about project feasibility analysis that should be done to find out whether any project idea is actually beneficial or not. So the next in line would be the project feasibility analysis. Another very important and innovative and interesting concept in project management is project feasibility analysis. So what is this, project feasibility analysis? How do you determine feasibility and how you actually manage analysis and design activities in your organization is very, very important. So the major topics that we will be covering henceforth in these sessions are project initiation, determining the project feasibility, project scheduling, managing project activities, manage system analysis, and team members. Right? So let us move ahead and we will be discussing first the project planning tasks. So, whenever you are doing any kind of project planning, the first and the foremost thing that is supposed to be done is to describe the project scope, find out any kind of alternatives if there are available to complete any task. By chance, it might happen that suddenly some miscellaneous event took place and you couldn't use the kind of process or procedure that you are going to use in your project. So you need to have some alternative plans ready. Like you all must have heard that what is your plan B if the plan A does not work. So this is the case with everybody, that everybody has to have some plan Bs. So you also have to, describe the feasibility of that project idea. You have found out whether it is matching the project scope or not. You have found out that what kind of alternatives you would have. Now the next is of course the feasibility analysis, wherein you have to decide upon the feasibility of any project idea, whether it is feasible enough to be implemented or not. Next is to divide the project into tasks, which means that now you divide your project into small little tasks and create a work breakdown structure out of it. And you estimate the resource requirements and create resource plan, develop communication plan, determine the standards and procedures, identify and assess the risk, develop a statement of work. You also set a baseline project plan. So we have actually done all this earlier also, so I won't go into its depth. uh, Mostly your project initiation has two broad sessions or broad reasons actually. One is the problems that lend themselves to the system solutions, and second is that of course for grabbing some new opportunities also, new projects are initiated. Then of course, to meet any kind of organizational plannings also, organizational problems also, sometimes there is a need for this, wherein you identify the problems by looking for the following signs, like check output against the performance criteria, and then find out whether there are too many errors, work was completed very slowly, work which was done was totally incorrect, work which was done was incomplete, or maybe the work was not done at all. So all these things are supposed to be considered by the organization when the project is getting actually launched. Then comes your organizational problems. When try to observe the behavior of different team members, there could be high absenteeism, high job dissatisfaction, high job turnover. These all are actually organizational problems which are also faced while the implementation of any project. Then, of course, you must be thinking I'm talking about so many organizational problems. So, what are these organizational problems actually? You should always, when trying to tackle down the problems, you should always listen to the feedback from the vendors, customers, and suppliers. If there are any kind of complaints, they should be registered, and they should be answered to, or there should be a very prompt response on the people who are trying to put up a query or file a complaint. Unless that is done, your project will never be considered as a successful project, and people will never be able to actually believe in you. Then, if you can also ask people to leave suggestions for you to improve, you can also decide upon the remuneration that the employees are getting. So there could be different aspects of this. So then comes your project selection stage, wherein there are some five specific criteria for project selection which are given on the screen. Like, first of all, it should be backed by management. Secondly, timely and appropriate level of commitment should be there for the resources. It also moves the business towards the attainment of its goals. It is practical, capable, and important enough to be considered over other projects. Right? So, next uh, thing is to find out the possibilities of improvement. Like, in every project, in every task that you are that you are working, or maybe implementing, there are multiple types of errors in it, right? So there are obviously many possible objectives which are existing, and they include things like speeding up a process, streamlining a process, combining the process, reducing errors uh, in input, reducing errors in the storage, reducing redundant types of outputs, and improving the system and subsystem irrigation. So these are the fields where improvements can be done when we talk about project management. So if we talk about the feasibility now, then I would just like to define it for you people so that you get a better understanding of what feasibility is exactly. A feasibility study assesses the operational, technical, and economic merits of the proposed project. So there are, of course, three main types of feasibility, like the technical feasibility, economic feasibility, and operational feasibility. I've already explained to you all these three types of feasibilities. Let's have a look at them in greater detail. So, if we talk about technical feasibility, it actually assesses whether the current technical resources are sufficient enough for the new introduction in their industry. If they're not available, then they can be upgraded to provide the level of technology necessary for the new system. Then the next step is assessing the organization's ability to construct the proposed system. It also takes into account various project risks or project risk factors which are available in front of you. Then the next is the project risk factors. I just spoke to you about it. Now you must be thinking that, what are these project risk factors? And let me just tell you that all these project risk factors have a particular project size, project structure, development group, users group. So there could be multiple such types of small little teams who are assessing the project risk. So when I talk about project size, you know, the team size or the organizational departments, project department, project duration, programming effect would also affect the size of the project. Then the next is project structure, like whenever you are trying to struggle between new versus renovated system, then you will result in organizational changes which have been brought in by your organization. Next is development group, familiarity with platform and software development methods, application areas, development of similar systems is highly important in development group. And the last is the user group, wherein familiarity with IS development process, application area, use of any such similar systems is highly important in this case. So this is a small grid which is shown, on which on the y-axis there is high familiarity with technology or application area, and the next says the lower half of the left hand side column says low familiarity with technology or application area, right? And then on the x-axis they are showing low structure to high structure increase. So they have shown that in case of high structure and low structures are there, there are multiple different strategies that can be implemented in the project management. So then, of course, the last thing that we are left for today's session is about economic feasibility. Economic feasibility basically determines whether the time and money are available to develop any system. It includes the purchase of new equipment, hardware, and software both. So, with this, we have almost come to an end of today's session. I really hope that it has been very through and through informative for you all. So that is all from my side for today. This is Dr. Swati Mishra from International School of Business Management at Suresh Ganliar University signing off. Thank you so much and have a nice day.